Hello, awesome people. I hope you're all feeling amazing. How you doing? So, what are we doing for you today? Today, I've got my awesome friend slash apprentice Ellie here, and she's going to ask me questions about Mamori Budo. Why? Why? I hear you all ask. Because it's awesome to have other people ask you questions about what it is that you do. And I think you all need to know about what we're doing with Mamori Budo. So, without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to Ellie and say, Ellie, you're in charge right now. Ask questions.
Okay, so let's start out. Tell me about the beginning.
The beginning. No, you have to be better question than that. What does the beginning? What do you mean the beginning? I could start
Okay,
with training Budo when I was. I could start with judo when I was 5, or I can start with all kinds of things. So
yeah, so you trained a lot of martial arts before this, right?
I have. Okay, well let's talk about my martial arts in inverted commas pedigree. I usually don't talk about doing judo when I was 5. It's I often and have joked about this with my friends. It's just like, well, I could say I started training martial arts when I was 5 or 6 because technically I did, but I haven't been training martial arts since I was 5 or 6. When I was in primary school, I went and did judo for a couple of years and loved it. It was awesome. I imagine it's not unlike what we do with the 5-year-olds that we have. It's a lot of rolling around, a lot of throwing. But it was in the 70s. It was very different to what we did now, and it was at the local. Back then, it was called the Police Boys Club. It's now called PCYC, Police and Citizens Youths Club. And it was run by the police. Like the actual, the police officers were involved, and the instructor or the teacher, the sensei, was a policeman, and he was he was pretty. I remember he used to walk. He'd walk in front of you and throw his belt over behind you, and then pull your legs out from underneath you. I still feel fear about that now. And it was just like, oh god, but made you learn how to fall, really, didn't it? I started judo when I was a small child. And then where did I go from there? Then I didn't really do anything after that until I was a little bit older and old enough to take myself places. Growing up, we were very busy. Mum and Dad were very busy, and we lived a long way from anywhere in the suburbs. So it wasn't just, it's not like you just go down the road to training or something. Like we lived, it was like anyway, when I was old enough to take myself places and get a driver's license, that kind of stuff, I went and trained in Kung Fu for a couple of years as well, with a guy, God, what was his name? Max Austin or something. I wonder what he's doing now. Anyway, so there was this Tibetan Kung Fu system that I trained in for a couple of years back in the dark ages. And then from there, I found Bujinkan Ninjutsu, and back when I started training, it was called Ninjutsu. That has been through a few evolutions and changes, as everything does. Everything grows through time. I found my sensei, Dion Carlos. I can't even tell you when that was. That was probably 91 or 92. No, wait, I finished high school in 91, so it would have been 92 or 93.
So you stuck with that for a lot of years.
Yeah. I trained. He closed his dojo down a couple of years ago, and he will always be my sensei. Like, even though he's stopped, he closed his dojo down. Every time I went back to Australia, one of my first ports of call was to go to training. I made sure I went to training. I made sure I went and saw him and all of my training buddies. He's been my staple, dojo that I trained at throughout my journey.
Cool. But then you moved.
But then there's more. Oh, but even before I moved, during that time, after starting Bujinkan, there was more that I had to do. So not long after I started Bujinkan, I also started training in Taekwondo in a freestyle system. And so I sort of traveled on those two paths congruently and got my first Dan black belts in relatively the same time, um, along with those two systems. And the taekwondo fell away for various reasons. Well, you can ask me about that later. And then then in there, you know, I've also done a little bit of karate. Before I moved here, I had a friend who was an MMA fighter, and I trained with him for a good 12 months. We just got together and did a bunch of training. That was really fun. I've done, particularly with my fitness work, I've done, you know, kickboxing, because you come across kickboxing, particularly in Australia, also has a real fitness element to it. If that makes sense. And done a bit of boxing as well. So yeah, that's kind of what I've done over the past, what feels like 50,000 years, but really 27 years. Yeah, that's my martial arts pedigree. There you go. Did I answer your question?
Yeah. And what happened after that? You moved to Sweden?
So yeah, I moved to Sweden. Oh no, there's more things. There's more things. I moved to Sweden in 2009, and here I went and had a go at a couple of Bujinkan dojos, and I wasn't finding what I was looking for. We can pull that apart in a minute if you want. And then I also started training Aikido as well, and that was really fun. It was really cool. It's like sword work, and I did that for about 6 months, but it just ended up being, you know, I was having to travel into Sankt Eriksplan, and it finished at like 10 o'clock at night, and then to get home again, and then to get up at 4:30, 5 o'clock to go to work. It was hard work. So, and I wasn't loving it enough to do the hard work to get there. So that fell away. And then I did have I mentioned doing MMA here as well? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I started doing MMA in an MMA club in Slussen when I first moved here, and I did that for probably 12 months. And that was interesting. And it was very different to what I was doing back in Australia. You know, this was a club that was producing really focused professional athletes. Not that the person I was training with back in Australia was trying to be a professional athlete but didn't quite make it. But this club was producing professional athletes, and it was good. It was hard training, but again, not really what I was looking for, because, you know, I would get the snot beaten out of me by these 18, 19-year-old boys who were trying to become the next whoever it is in the UFC at the moment. And, you know, I was in my late 30s, just wanting to get a workout in, wanting to learn some new skills, wanting to get my training done, not get the shit beaten out of me, basically. And so that wasn't really what I was looking for, funnily enough. So yeah, that's what I've done. And, you know, somewhere in there also, sorry, you go. Yep.
Yeah, what started Mamori Budo? What sort of...
Yeah. So before I moved here, I started teaching. And it's really weird, like, to start your own martial arts dojo, or at least it was for me. My instructor wasn't very encouraging of his students starting their own dojos, and there was no real set up plan. It was just kind of like the messages that I feel I got were, well, if you're going to do something, just go do it. You know, it's like, oh, okay. You know, within the Bujinkan, there is ways and ways of doing things, and, you know, if you start a Bujinkan dojo, you have to report to somebody, to your supervisor, who now let me get this right. To run a dojo on your own, in inverted commas, unsupervised, you have to be 5th dan or above. And if you're not 5th dan or above, you have to be under somebody who is 5th dan or above. and that, so you've got a shidoshi and a shidoshi ho. And you know, I was at this point where I'd started my own business and I was wanting to start my own dojo and start teaching that kind of stuff, but it just wasn't in my heart to teach Bujinkan. And we'll pull that apart later, but we will talk about that. But at the same time, I really felt like I wasn't being pushed to teach Bujinkan either. And I had this moment with my sensei. We're talking one day, and he says this to me. He goes, "You know, Jo, you don't have to report to anybody." Or no, what he said was, "You're not responsible to anybody." And to this day, I'm not sure he meant it the way I took it. But the way I took it was to just sit there and go, you know what? I'm not. I don't have to give my undying loyalty to some stranger in Japan. You know, and I don't want to take away from anybody who is still teaching in the Bujinkan and still living their life attached to that organization, that kind of stuff. And I owe the Bujinkan a huge amount because the system and the style itself is amazing, and I'm never going to take that away from it. But it just really felt like it wasn't my path to continue teaching within the Bujinkan. And when he said that to me, was something inside me just went, oh, you know, it was like this little spark, and Mamori Budo was born. And so I started teaching my own thing, because I haven't just reached, you know, this Dan level ranking I have in the Bujinkan. I've also done this in Taekwondo, and I've also done this, you know, having trained with MMA fighters and trained in karate and that kind of stuff. Like I didn't get to, in inverted commas, high up ranking levels in those systems, but I've certainly done that within Bujinkan, within Taekwondo. And within that, I felt very limited, because when you follow a style or system and you buy into it, and you have to, you know, you agree to follow, the boundaries of that particular system. And I had more information to offer, I think. So I started my own style or system, and it is called Mamori Budo.
What does that mean?
It came about. Okay, so Mamori Budo. Mamori is a Japanese word. If you Google it, what comes up in my Google Translate program is Mamori means defense, and an O Mamori is a defense talisman, or a talisman of defense, or protection. I take it all back. It's not defense; it's protection. Whoa. But my brain was going, "You're wrong. That's the wrong word." So yeah, it means protection, and an O Mamori is a protection talisman. And so I took that word and went, that's the right word for us, because what we do in Mamori Budo is we come from a self-defense perspective, meaning that the training that we do and the way we teach and the way that we practice is always coming from this idea that if I ever have to use these skills for a self-defense, from a self-defense perspective, this is the way I'm going to train them. And, you know, so the things that we don't do in Mamori Budo is we don't go in for competition. We don't go in for teaching people to cage fight, or, you know, get in there, or point sparring for that matter, or performing cutters and stuff and things like that, because, again, not taking away anything from people who do that, this is my perspective, this is how I want to teach, this is how I want this system to be built up. I'm not here to teach people how to compete with other people. I'm here to teach people how to survive in a self-defense situation. And a lot of the techniques that we learn, I'm going to be really careful what I say here, because I've had arguments with people over the years about this, which is if you train with the perspective of pulling your punches or point sparring, or understanding that just tapping somebody is a point and you're winning, you know, in a real life self-defense situation, that person doesn't give a rat's whether or not you touch them. You're dealing with an animal, you're dealing with someone who wants genuine harm without your consent. And I want people to be in an understanding of that, rather than in a situation where they're training day in, day out, and their mind is always based on scoring points and winning. What we're doing is teaching people to survive, you know, a life-threatening situation. Yeah, you know, even in things like cage fighting and that kind of stuff, well, not cage, but MMA and that kind of stuff, like from the other side of it is, and from my own perspective, is when you are engaging in cage fighting, and to be clear, I have been in one or two, what's the word? Not registered, competition fights in my life. And I've also trained with people who are in competition fights and have been around it, and I understand how it works. But for me, when I watch this and when I engage in it, you have to be in a position where you want to hurt the other person more than they want to hurt you to win. That's just not a philosophy I want to engage in.
No.
You know, like it's you know, you got to be okay with hurting people, and I'm not. I'm really not. Yeah, particularly even for sport. I mean, I understand for a lot of people who go, but you punch people, and like even in contact sport, you know, I've played rugby and I've done martial arts for years. And competitive martial arts is the same thing. You know, there's consent offered up, and you're both going in there to do that. But the thing that I don't like about competitive martial arts in terms of fighting to submission is that, you know, you have to be willing to break that person's arm if they don't submit. And for the sake of winning, rather than for the sake of surviving in a life or death. I don't want to be in a life or death situation either, to be clear. Not what I want to do. So, you know, we choose to not engage in competition. We choose to not engage in the side of martial arts that is based around fighting each other to win.
Yeah.
Or demonstrating techniques or anything like that to win. We keep it low key. We stay in the dojo. We train from a perspective of, if I need to use this in real life, this is a good way of doing it. On the other side of that, we also do training techniques that, you know, just for fun, right? Because training is fun.
Yeah.
You know, so does that answer your question?
It did. I think I did. Is there anything more you'd like to add?
I don't know. I've lost track there.
Why should we come train with you?
The reason I asked, do I answer your question, is because I actually genuinely forgot the original question. I'm too busy talking. Why should people come and train with me? Because we're awesome, basically.
I concur.
You know, it's a good question. Here's what I say to people who should or shouldn't. Well, I think everybody should train. Here's what I say to people who would say, rather than why should we come and train with you, should we train martial arts? I'm going to say yes. And I'm going to say yes, put your kids in martial arts, because it's really good for you. If for no other reason, developing your coordination, your balance, and your ability to interact with other humans. And, you know, the advantage of it is you also learn to defend yourself against people who will cause you harm without your consent. So, you know, training martial arts. Should you come and train with me? If you like the way I train, of course. If you don't, find an instructor that you do like. you know, like this. And you know, people go, well, what sort of style should I come and train at? Well, you know, it's actually less about the style and more about the trainer or the instructor. And the more time you spend in martial arts, the more time you realize that whilst at the base level, the ground level, everything is, you know, different. As you're climbing that mountain to the top of the martial arts mountain, you realize that everything actually starts being the same, you know, because the human body only moves in certain ways, right? Like your body is your body, my body is my body, and we move differently, but your joints, you know, your joints move like that. My joints, they're all the same. So, you know, the techniques that you find when you've been training for a long time, they all kind of, when you boil it down, they're all pretty similar. So it's less about the system and more about the instructor and whether or not that instructor is going to give you what it is that you're looking for.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And with that said, come train with us.
Yeah, of course. Come and train with us because we're awesome.
Okay.
And we'll teach you some really good self-defense.
Yeah, we will. Okay. Thank you, Jo.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for asking those awesome questions. I hope that if anybody else has any other questions they'd like us to answer, send them in and we can answer them. How about that?
That's a good idea.
Cool, man.